Oh, yeah, baby. Lads, can you feel it? Can you? I'm trying not to curse. Lads, this is awesome. We've got Max Verstappen back in the game, man. I feel like I'm in the Roman times back in the day in the Colosseum, and I'm watching a gladiator rip someone's head off, and he's ripping Piastri's and Norris's head off. We've got the assassin, the real assassin back. Yeah, we've gone on about Piastri too, I know. But Piastri's great, don't get me wrong, I love him, and I think he's an assassin, but we've got the real Verstappen and the real assassin back. Right, take a breath, even though I can't take a breath, but because we're about to witness, lads, over the next 2 weekends, could be the most ridiculous plot twist in F1 history. We've arrived at the Qatar Grand Prix 2025. 2 full races left, 1 sprint, and it's over the next week and a half. We don't have long to wait, even for the last round. So, I mean, it's 58 points on offer. Somehow, Max Verstappen has dragged himself back from the grave. How did this happen? Honestly, I was hoping all this year that it'll happen, and I was saying, look, lads, you never know, it's a long shot. Things can happen in Formula 1, things can happen in motor racing in general. But then to actually see it happen, the man was over 100 points behind, ridden off. The media packed up the story, gone home. And now he's 24 points off the lead, tied with Oscar Piastri, and right behind Lando Norris. It ain't a long shot anymore, lads. This is very, very doable. Oh, lads, we've got a lot to unpack today, and we're going to talk about, you will not believe this, if you may have heard already, Adrian Newey has now been promoted to the team boss, the Christian Horner, Toto Wolff job. I don't think this is a good idea. But we're going to get into that in just a moment. And we're also going to get into the permutations. Apparently, in fact, I got it slightly wrong there the other day. Well, actually, not slightly. I got it wrong the other day. I thought Lando Norris can't actually win the championship this weekend. But he actually can. We're going to go into the permutations, okay? But anyway, lads, before we get into all this, the championship has gone from like a cruise ship with champagne, sun loungers, everybody relaxing, listening to jazz music, to like a knife fight in a fucking phone booth. There's no breathing room here. There's no comfort. I mean, you saw Oscar Piastri make a mistake last weekend. The pressure was on him so slightly, and even those people coming over to me now, they're saying, well, yeah, I can't see Lando Norris holding on, can you? No, I wouldn't go that far with the guy, but he's not. I don't think he's going to be at his best. I just don't think he will. He's under pressure now. One mistake now ends somebody's year. And the funny thing is, this time last week, nobody saw this coming. Not nobody. Well, we were hoping, right? We were hoping. But not even the most delusional Verstappen fans are the most optimistic McLaren critics. We're banking on this. We were hoping. McLaren were hoping that it wasn't going to happen. For Red Bull fans were hoping it could happen. So, you can't blame both sides here. And here's the thing. You can taste the pressure. You can feel the paranoia. Every team boss, every mechanic, every strategist, they're all sweating through their shirts right now in these 2 teams, lads. This is where champions are made. This is where careers are defined, and this is where the truth comes out. So today we're diving into real permutations, strategy, real consequences. We're going to go into the track as well. We're going to take a lap of the track and show you what the most important corner is and why, and just to see who do we think is going to do this. We're going to break it all down. So let's get into it.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front. What a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter. Walsh. Now let's talk Adrian Newey. Right, now this was a shock to the system. Formula 1 is not a Disney movie. Formula 1 is a shark tank with carbon fiber teeth. It's politics, corruption, money, ego, power and backstabbing dressed up as a sport. There's also great elements to the sport as well, lads. Of course there is. But if you've seen Netflix Drive to Survive, you probably know what I mean. And now Adrian Newey is stepping into the snake pit without armour here. I mean, really. Up until now, he's lived in the safest place in the sport. No press pressure as such, because when he was even with Red Bull and Christian Horner being the team boss, even though Adrian Newey was the wizard behind the curtain, it always fell on Christian Horner. Even though people would say, well, Adrian Newey, he's just not getting that car to the place they want. And they'd even say that on the news, but yet it was always Christian Horner was taking the flak. Same for Toto Wolff, same for every other team boss. The buck stops with the boss. It's like your business. If you've got your boss, at the end of the day, the buck stops with the boss. Simple as that. And now he's going into the red zone. And now he's the target. He becomes the guy who stands in front of the firing squad. He's the first in line. And let's be brutally real. If Aston fails, he's the idiot who couldn't manage a team. If Lance Stroll sinks the team, Newey gets blamed for not managing the drivers properly. If the car isn't competitive, suddenly he's washed up, he's past his peak, he's now lost his touch, it's all over for the guy. The same media that have worshipped the guy, they'll crucify him when they become the team principal. And Lawrence Stroll, let's not pretend he's a saint. He didn't hire Newey because he's a romantic dreamer building a legacy. He hired him because he wants to win a championship before he sells the team. Maybe he won't, but there's a good chance he will. And of course he wants to win championships, there's no doubt about it. I think this is a step too far, lads. I mean, you had Christian Horner, the Red Bull team boss. The buck stops with him. This guy's got about 10 trillion jobs, Christian Horner. The man is a busy, busy man. When this racing drivers pack up for the night, they get on the jet Sunday night and they fly home to wherever they're going. They might have a couple of drinks, yeah, but they might have the Monday off to relax. But all they've got to do is work on their fitness, or maybe a couple of sponsorship gigs. So you can still be a busy person being an F1 driver, no two ways about it. But you don't have 50 trillion jobs to do like a team boss does. Christian Horner, he's back at the factory on a Monday morning. Toto Wolff is the same thing. They're trying to manage this, trying to babysit that person, trying to babysit that, trying to fix a contract, trying to work out a contract, trying to get rid of a driver. I mean, just 50 trillion things at once. I don't think this is a good thing for the genius of Adrian Newey. You don't distract the man, you unleash the man. Go the other way. It could turn out incredibly positive. Remember Ross Brawn? Aerodynamicist back in the day, a brilliant, amazing guy. And he took over Ross Brawn. He took over the Brawn Formula One team. He was the man, the team principal, like Adrian Newey, Christian Horner, Toto Wolff. And what did he do? He went on to win the championship with Jenson Button. So it can work in your favor too. It just depends on how they set the thing up. But there's no need for this risk either. There's no need. He hasn't been in this situation before. It's like having a president and then a vice president. The vice president, yeah, he's around the desk, right, in the Oval Office. He's hovering over the president, looking at what he does. He's in every debrief, right, and he knows the pulse of what's going on in the Oval Office. But the moment you sit into that chair, man, that becomes a different story because you're the one now pressing the buttons, not the vice president. And there's no middle ground. There's no safe landing here. And, I remember even my old team boss back in the day when I was racing Formula Ford here in Ireland. My old team boss, he was a racing driver. And he was a bloody good racing driver. Then he became a team boss. And, it was amazing that I knew of his career. He had some great wins, brilliant qualifier, brilliant racer. But when you knew him, you never looked at him like he was a driver. It's not that, he put on weight or no, nothing like that. He just had that outlook, the mentality of a team boss. Now, he could definitely understand you in the car when he's in the debrief with you and you're discussing with your engineer. You're saying, oh, there's oversteer, understeer here. It's not consistent on the lap 3, lap 4, blah, 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 right? All that. He can understand. He gets exactly what you're saying. But he's got about 5 trillion jobs to do at once. And that's tough, man. That's very tough, even for my old team boss. That's a very tough thing to do. And I'm not having a go off my old team boss. I'm not having a go off Adrian Newey. It's just, it's president versus vice president, uncle versus parents, granny and granddad minding the nephews versus the parents minding the nephew. You know what I mean? I'm going to put it on the line here. I'm going to put my balls on the line here, lads. If Adrian Newey cannot turn the team around into a winning team in 2 years, it's over. The fat lady has sung. Elvis has left the building. Sail off into the sunset, my friend, because it's over. It's done. Now, if you let him at the same position, well, then maybe that'll be a different story. But coming in as the team boss, the president, well, this guy's under pressure now, man. And especially with the 2026 rules changing, it's not like all the teams have the same car in 2024 going into 2025 and then going into 2026. And all you're doing is just tweaking this, adjusting that, doing that. Do you know what I mean? You could have your base, your foundation perfect, but then you're just adding on more wing. You've got a new wing. So you're adjusting more than changing things. But now this does help the smaller teams. Now, Aston Martin, I wouldn't say they're a small team now, okay? But it does help you now to balance the scales a lot more going into 2026 because everybody is, well, technically starting from scratch. So, because Formula 1, lads, is no longer just about who builds the fastest car, like it can be about FIA favoritism, manufacturers, alliances, political compliance, sponsor pressure, media narratives, legal manipulation, billionaires pulling strings, and if Adrian Newey, the smartest guy to ever touch a wind tunnel, cannot rise above this, well, the message becomes crystal clear. Modern Formula 1 is no longer won by the genius. It's won by the money, corruption, and power. And you don't put a guy like Adrian Newey then into the team boss role. He is an insane asset for any team. But have his focus on, 100% focus on just the car. And that's what Christian Horner did. That's why Christian Horner, he knew exactly what he was getting into. He wasn't trying to be the boss of Adrian Newey. He wasn't trying to outdo him with his ego, his pride, right? Trying to play some stupid, pathetic game that some bosses can play with you. This guy let him do his thing. He let him trust it the whole way down. And that's exactly what you need to do. Whether it's a Formula 1 team, whether it's you've got a boss, you are the boss, whatever career it is, you've got to let go and let the guy do the job. Now, Adrian Newey might rise to the occasion like Ross Brawn. And hey, you wouldn't be surprised to because the guy is such a genius. But why bother take the risk? It's on, lads. Right, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Screw all the other drivers. Who gives a damn at this stage? For the last 2 weekends, it's all the focus. The spotlight is on the three boys. Norris, Piastri, and Verstappen. Now let's look at it. Now I've got it up on my screen here, lads, so just bear with me. Okay, so Norris on 390. Oscar Piastri on 366. Verstappen on 366 also. 2 Grand Prix left, 1 sprint, 25 points up for grab for the Grand Prix for each of them, and 8 points total up for the sprint. Now, let's look at the permutations. What Max Verstappen needs to do this weekend: win the sprint in Qatar, gets you 8 points. Win the bloody Grand Prix will get him 25 points. Total possible, 58 points, and then he's on 424. Now, for him to win in that scenario, Piastri must score no more than 8 points combined across those rounds. In other words, very low finishes. Now, realistically, maybe a single 8th place or 2 low points finishes. If that happens, it's game on for Verstappen, baby. Now, will Norris and Piastri have very, very low? I know at the start we were getting very excited. It's not out of bed, especially when I think my default always goes to, well, look, let's just keep it realistic. But actually, the way this whole year has gone, like a roller coaster, man, of emotion and confusion and what the hell is going on, that could easily happen. And you've got Norris and Piastri in a pressurized situation where, believe me, as an ex-racing driver, if you're in this situation, you're feeling the pressure, man. And this is tough. This is very tough for the two of them. And they could take each other out. Verstappen is going to have to play this very delicately where he cannot get caught up and tied up with the lads here at all. Now, let's look at Lando Norris. Now, he's got the easier path to the title, technically speaking. He doesn't have to win the races. All right? He does not have to win the races. All he needs to do is consistently finish in P2 to P5. So they've even given us an example here. So in the sprint, if he finishes second, he gets 7 points. Or even 5th or 8th, he keeps the gap. In the Grand Prix at the weekend and Abu Dhabi next week, if he finishes 4th and 6th consistently, even if Verstappen wins both races, Norris can clinch it. As long as he remains within 15 to 20 points of Verstappen after Qatar. So in other words, Norris has got the safest pass, but only if he and McLaren have no mistakes. But they've got a truckload of mistakes. Okay, now we've got Oscar Piastri. Now what does he have to do? Well, in a weird way, Verstappen was the dark horse. Now Piastri's the dark horse. Mad the way this is changing all around the place. Okay, Piastri's level on points with Verstappen. If Piastri wins one Grand Prix, finishes strong in the other, now let's look at more. Verstappen screws up, a DNF, mechanical issue, lower finish, whatever. Norris falters, low finishes are even a DNF. Piastri could slip through and steal the title, but the odds, given Piastri's recent form and McLaren issues at Vegas, and we scheme with the right height, this requires near perfect weekends, lads. It really does. Even though, well, actually, no, it does. What makes this real? Okay, reliability. One DNF, one mechanical issue, or one crash by any of the top 3, and the mats dramatically change. Again, guys, like, these are rough permutations. Now, they do track. They do make logical sense. But all it takes is they go into that sprint this weekend and these permutations go out the window. So again, they could completely change once we even get to the sprint race. So, now, okay, before we get to the track, Norris, I'm not even going to say he's the favourite. This guy makes too many mistakes, man. He's not reliable. He's unpredictable, unstable. Yes, he's going to a racing psychologist. And guys, I'm not trying to pee all over the guy here. If you're a Norris fan, I'm sorry. I don't mean to, because like I've said it before, he's such a lovely guy. Like, you do want him to do well. And I'd love for him to do well. But he just doesn't have that assassin. And if you're not an assassin, man, you don't deserve to be there. You just don't. And look, he'd be the first guy on the list. If you want to go out in the piss, you want to get drunk with the lads on a Sunday night after a race, he's the first guy you're calling. Like, he's an awesome dude. But you just couldn't have him as the reliable one. Now, again, maybe he can just hold it together, and he could easily know. Because he doesn't have a mountain to climb, even though Verstappen and Piastri don't have a mountain to climb either. So, and look, you'd give him that. You'd give Oscar Piastri, like, that, what would you call it, sympathy maybe? The fact that he had such a lead, that everything was looking great, and all of a sudden now it's coming crashing down on top of you. it wouldn't make you doubt yourself. It could make you maybe doubt nature. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think you know what I mean. And okay, guys, let's get to the track. Let's have a look at the track now. This is an interesting one. This is a great track, very smooth. It's called the Lusail International Circuit. 5.4 kilometers, fastest lap 1:22.3. Now it'll be a 57 lap race. Now this is an interesting track because it's very hard to decide which one is the most important corner on the track. I think it'll depend on the setup with the updates. Now normally when I look at a track, I'll even go, yeah, that's the corner. But there's some tracks where they can differ depending on what's happening, right? I think turn 2 is definitely extremely important, because it's long, sweeping, it's smooth. You can carry the speed, carry the momentum, going through 3 and then up to the S-bends at the top 4, 5, and then into 6, right? So you're not just going through turn 2, you're opening up the other 3 next corners. Now, then you could look throughout the back, which you got 6 and 7, 8, 9, but then you could look at maybe turn 10. Now, turn 10 is the same type of scenario with turn 2, right? You get through turn 10, you open up the next corner, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and you've got a long run into that last corner on the track. So it's very, very important, lads, that they're going to be looking at different types of setup this weekend. If I had to choose, I'd probably go with turn 10, because you've got such an open-ended sequence coming up next, and what the momentum you get from turn 10 can favor you going through the next sequence, or the next, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, next 5 sequences. So that could be very, very important. Now again, it could all change this weekend. You might find they might have something mechanical now that they've perfected at turn 2 or 3, but they have to sacrifice a corner on one of the other parts of the track, right? And that can happen where you actually are sacrificing a corner because you've got to make sure you've got to get 95% of the other bends bang on the button. And that can happen in a lot of tracks. So sometimes you're not even looking at the most important corner. You could be even looking at the least important corner. It just depends on how you look at it, right? Or you could even be sacrificing 2 corners, right? I'll sacrifice grip here and these 2 S-bends or the chicane, hairpin, whatever, and then I'll have a lot of momentum going down the back. Okay, so it's all about finding the balance this weekend. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta go in with a prediction. Now I know normally I get most of these wrong. Okay, I suck at predictions, even though I've got quite a few right this year, I gotta admit. Lucky me. But anyway, okay, I'm gonna go for it, lads. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for Verstappen winning the sprint, Piastri and Norris 2nd and 3rd, but the Grand Prix itself, I'm gonna go again. I'm going for Verstappen for the win, and Piastri and Norris DNFs. What do you think?
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front. What a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter. Walsh.